first half of this year, and that got delayed. I don't think the other major browsers have any set date for that. So it's still something that's being worked on and could potentially change, but we're on top of it. We are very excited about Web GPU because that opens up a lot of opportunities for us to do more computation on the GPU. Better GPU based aggregation and effects and all that stuff. Very exciting for visualization. Something else that's on the backlog is better animation support. Right now we have attribute transition, but it's pretty simple. It's an index-based one-to-one transition, and there has been a long-standing ticket for a key-based transition system, and potentially a animation system where you can set up keyframes and the transitions in between them. That is something we have an open RFC for. That RFC, I think, has been probably a year old, but it is something we acknowledge is important to a lot of use cases, and we're probably gonna have to address that. Something else, we are probably going to have an experimental additional non-web marketer projection system in the next minor release, and we are looking at how we can work with terrains, both in the deck.gl system itself with a terrain layer, or from a base map provider from either Mapbox, MapLibre, or Google Maps, how we can have layers work better with terrains, including if you have 2D data in the layer, it might need to be shifted to be placed along the terrain surface, or if you have like polygons or line strings, it might need to be draped on top of the terrain. That is something we're actively looking at. One last thing is we're thinking of adding a new submodule deck.gl controls. So for those of you who use RecMapGL, we used to have a system where you can use RecMapGL controls like navigation control, geolocate, that sort of thing on top of deck.gl. And in the latest release of RecMapGL, we removed that ability, partially to improve the performance and maintainability of RecMapGL. Another thing is we don't think you should have to include this large dependency to be able to use some simple common controls with deck. So we're going to have an independent library that implement these simple UIs that can be used with deck.gl. And I know that will be of interest to a lot of Python users as well, since for declarative, they don't have many options to add JavaScript code to their maps. That's everything on the core side. I know there are other folks in this room that are working on other things like different integrations and also loaders modules that support different formats. I'll pass the microphone around.
Great. On my side, I think that apart from the things that we are going to add to the CARTO module, I would like to take the opportunity today to ask for you about two things that I have heard about different users, and to try to see how do you have faced this with deck.gl. And there is like two main things that I have heard a lot from different users. One is if some of you have been in trouble when they try to do some kind of advanced cartography using deck.gl. For example, styling based on zoom levels, something like that. If you feel in some way that we need to improve that part of the product, or do you think that is enough with the current things that we have? Is someone that have an idea on that direction?
That was the next point. So we were just talking about here now the backlog. so Sally says, like, is there anything on top of what you said around what it's coming that we have already in the plans? Anybody else on the loaders, on PyDeck, any other ones? On Hubble?
With PyDeck, we are going to include that in CARTO module, that you are going to be able to visualize a table that is in a data warehouse using PyDeck. So if you have data in BigQuery, Snowflake, or Redshift, and you have a CARTO account, you will be able to visualize, but that is part of only of the CARTO module.
Now you can make your question.
Yeah. Okay. So that is the question regarding the cartographic capabilities. If you think that is something that is necessary, I have heard that a lot from CARTO users that they are trying to develop application using deck.gl and using the CARTO module, that they feel that in some way they need better styling capabilities, something like create styling based on tool level and things like that.
So from I mean, I don't know if that relates to what you were saying, but I think one thing that I like a lot around the GL was the declarative styling language, where you could write, like the styling in a creative way. I think that was really powerful, because that allows for a lot of application developments, and it also provides a non-developer Scala language to styling with the GL. It's kind of like in this semi-way right now. What is the status of that? Is that something that you guys think is important and that we're going to maintain, or what do you guys think?
I think that is something very, very useful if you want to serialize data between a server and the client, because you can use this declarative language for that. But right now is in a corner on the website. I think that not too much people use that. But I think that is something that we can try to continue improving for sure. I think that is like having like this playground, and also with the conversation that we have yesterday regarding base maps and so on. I think that would be great to have like some place in the website that using this, and maybe using the different base maps provided, you can play around the different layers with deck.gl. I feel that in some way for some things it's a little bit complicated to use, that if you need to use functions to use the get fill color or to get the position and things like that, is not quite straightforward to use.
So the primary use case of declarative right now is in PyDeck. Basically, this is something you can serialize from Python to JavaScript. And we will convert that into deck and layer instances on the JavaScript side. I may be wrong, but I think PyDeck is not using binary transport the entire way. We can check, but there should be some optimization that's possible. We did lay out the foundation in deck.gl core at some point, but PyDeck development kind of slowed. After all party involved left to Uber. So I'm very excited that CARTO is picking up this and committing someone full time to this. And if you are not aware, there had been an experiment of a native port of deck.gl to C++, and that also uses the declarative.
This interface is pretty broken right now.
This as stable as PyDeck is. I think that's that is the test. This each at least each example in here should be working. We do manually test that before release.
I think that as we are, one of the things that we are going to do in CARTO is to use more and more PyDeck. I think that we are going to launch this under beta. I think that we are going to bring more stability to the project, and if we bring more stability to PyDeck, that we are going to bring more stability to the declarative language. So I think that it will improve during the next couple of months. But yeah, I think that probably is not failing so much the declarative language itself. It's more the playground that we have. That we have some bugs. This is an old library that we didn't update, and probably we can give more love to this section on the website.
Has anybody used this playground? Oh, well, I think most people, I'm not aware of it, full honest. I don't think they knew this exists, but so okay. Yeah, it is. So, but you see, like, this is probably, then to the discussion of the website, like, is this the right place to have it? So look, as if you go here and then you go to examples, I don't know why, instead of like, maybe we could have like, then declarative is the last one in here. So, but I don't know, but it's an interesting discussion because, like if we put the playground being the so explicit, I mean, like it might make people believe that the way to program in deck.gl is using the declarative language. Because I mean, this to me looks like a language for data visualization. So you know what I mean? It's a little bit of a, this is in conflict from my point of view towards, like the getting started. So if you click here and say introduction, this is how you use it, learning deck.gl, all these things. None of these tell you that this is the way to use deck.gl, so it's a way, it's a bit conflicting.
I think that depends on the user at the end of the day. So if you are a developer, probably you prefer to have a geospatial like the one that we have in the sample, and you want to jump there. But if you're not a developer, probably you prefer the declarative language because it would be easier for you. But I think that depends on the kind of user.
No, but I'm not saying that like one is better than the other. I'm saying that it's confusing the way. What is this?
Yeah. I think that definitely is something that we should clarify better on the website documentation and so on.
Just before we jump into the website design, we would like to hear like what is on your mind, like what do you think will benefit your use case in the upcoming releases of deck.gl. What do you mean by proper streaming?
So the thing is that point clouds, I think we are lacking some kind of tutorial or something like that explains how to prepare point clouds so it can be used. Because at the end of the day, you have just a few examples. One is you are loading the whole point cloud at the beginning of the loading of the page, and the one is using CSU, which is not ideal because it's a paid product. There are alternatives that are not documented, and they kind of work. So that could be beneficial. The other thing is that there are a few bugs in terms of visibility that kind of work, but that's really good. So probably fixing those visibility bugs, knowing which tiles do we have to load depending on the camera, this needs to be fixed. And the second one is if you compare point clouds in deck.gl respect to other softwares that are using point clouds, they look too noisy. So probably some shading improvements could be beneficial. But I have a strong bias to point clouds because it's one of the native data sets that I'm using every day. But to be frank, point clouds are growing in size tenfold every year and so on. So I think we need to solve it. Well, let's talk about that then. So yeah. I'm super interested in that point clouds working properly. I don't have a lot of time to invest, but I need people to work on that. And my interest in growing the community in that space is clear. Okay, let's talk.
You mentioned non-Mercator projections, right? So that will be experimental support. I think that would be fantastic, but I wonder how it would sync with base maps, like especially this new Mapbox hybrid dynamic projection. Oh, yeah, whether it would be possible at all somehow.
So right now we don't have base map synchronization for anything other than WebMarketer. And we discussed this a little yesterday. Mapbox does not have full support for the non-marketer projection modes. I know MapLibrary is also working on some of these features, and will probably want to be more involved in how they design those APIs. So we can have an option to use base map because we know it's important in geospatial cases. But at the moment, like I think probably the most common projection modes that you would want to use are very well known calculations. So the projection itself is not really different between libraries. We just need to figure out all the camera parameters to make sure the view projection matrix match, and that will require us to work with each base map case by case.
What other things? Is there other areas that you would like to see?
Yeah. Can anyone speak of like what is bothering you, like things you want to see improved, or things doesn't work so well, or maybe a new official layer type that will make your life easier?
Guys, this is the time where you can ask for new layers. I mean, really, it's a good opportunity. So I think one data type that we are seeing more and more is this type of movement data. So similar to kind of like the trips layers, right? Of where you have like devices that are kind of like producing GPS points, and you are kind of like have to kind of recreate these trajectories, kind of like the trips layer that we have, but very, very large data sets. Like like where you have like we've seen now data sets of like devices that are kind of like collecting location over time, moving over having better ways to explore those. I think will be something very useful, which will require two things. Will require like obviously tiling for supporting them, but also animation over time. So a spatiotemporal Kala type of visualizations like this, I think is something that at least we are seeing a lot of companies getting into. I don't know if any of you are working on something like that. There's also not like a very good data format for transfer. So vector tiles does not have, they're not for spatiotemporal Kala type of visualizations. So what I see is many people Kala doing their own things in a way, trying multiple things. We saw yesterday with Global Forest Watch an idea on, like for deforestation. But yeah, is there anybody working on that space? Apart from Alex? No? Okay. All right. Cool. All right. What about the other? So that's one area that I was thinking about. The other one, I'm going to put it here just so I don't remember. Spatiotemporal data sets or movements. I can write with my hand. The other one is raster. There was some attempts by, I think, Unfolded around Google Earth Engine and support for rasters and temporal rasters type of things for, I think it's, I don't know. I don't know if it's still available. Do you know, is that still available? Google Earth Engine layers or something like that, right? So is that something, is there anybody working on raster data sets that would like better visualizations? Yeah. So I think it's this one, right? Earth Engine layers. It's anybody at Unfolding knows if this is, oh, no, this is not right. Anybody at Unfolding can tell if this is something that they're going to continue developing or Google? Yeah, and I think they lost the domain. All right. So it was something like this if you haven't seen it. So it was this type of visualizations. So yeah.
Yeah, at Geomático, we developed some applications on precision agriculture, and we would be very much interested in having some raster algebra that we can download actual geotiffs, cloud optimized. So not hacking the RGB channels, but having proper bands and do some computation on the GPU. That would be very interesting. We don't have the capability to build on our own, but if there's some traction, we will join, because that's definitely interesting for us.
So that would be cloud
yeah, some way of downloading proper raster data, not images, and then do some simple algebra, mixing different bands or even different data sources. Cloud optimized seems like the natural way to go.
I know Kyle's done a lot of work on that.
Yeah, I think there is a loader geotiff module. I don't know how much computation it does, but at least it should load the data format correctly. When Kyle gets here, we can ask him what's the status of that. I think he was involved in that part of the development.
He did this deck.gl raster library that had band support.
Andrew, do you want to talk about what you post on the Slack channel?
Yeah, so I think we talked about this a couple of times, but adding common widgets. So like everybody builds their own legend. We built that tooltip in the deck.gl. We have the default tooltip now. Could we do something similar for legends, time scrubbers, other common components, and even add that to that declarative JSON spec? Because then we can put it in PyDeck and any other language binding. That, and I also don't know what's the status of Nebula GL, right? Because it obviously has like a bunch of important functionality.
So Nebula GL, when we moved deck.gl and a bunch of other libraries to open governance, Nebula was not part of them. So it's currently still under the Uber organization. It's the map editing tool. I definitely think there are things that we can do to improve it. Like right now, I think it's React only, and it only works in geospatial. It doesn't work in non-geo, which should be a simple fix, you know. But yeah, it's linked on some of the websites. But I believe at the moment Uber still owns it. I doubt there has been any more development effort that was put in there. We could contact the Uber open source team and attempt to adopt it, but they haven't been very nice to us.
That would be great if we can contact with the person that developed this, because I think that we need to work on improve this. We are using this component inside of CARTO. I will share that in my next presentation. That is for the masking tool that we have. We use Nebula, but we have some troubles right now when we are using Nebula on other base maps. It works very well with map.gl, but for Google Maps, we have some issues that we have solved, but let's say that not on the proper way. And yeah, that will make sense for us.
Yeah. Well, we can talk to to Jonathan, the person who's the new person who's now running the open source office there. Jonathan was working with us during the OpenJS merge when we merged UCF to OpenJS. So he's very responsive. Yes, I mean, yeah, I'll reach out to Jonathan about Nebula. Yeah, yeah. We still work together on a variety of things. You know, we try to get our domains and things like that to move over into open governance, and so all those little pieces of it, which you know, if you look through Nebula, you'll even see there still are commits happening, like. And they aren't Uber employees. So there are people like kind of in the community that have access, that have been given access to make commits and pushes. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be really difficult for us to maintain a library that we don't have that total admin access and control over. So I think it's worth at this point asking for them to move Nebula, MathGL, these different libraries that are really only used by the VisGL ecosystem into the actual VisGL ecosystem. So I think it's more like not a technical thing, but more of a people thing. And we can ask and keep that discussion alive, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's some surprisingly, you know, non-insignificant user base of Nebula. Every time we release a new version, if there's any breakage on the Nebula side, probably within a week we'll get someone complain. So, and I do believe it is actively being used inside of Uber. So, you know, they will benefit from outside contributors regularly looking at the code base.
This is an interesting one because it's kind of like in the middle of, should these be within our ecosystem or it's closer to something like MapLibre? I mean, like having an editor, is that something that is for data visualization? You know, it's like they're in the middle, right? It's like whose responsibility is to do this? So we do this?
But this one has real 3D editing, which the MapLibre one won't have, because so it covers another need. It's true. Well, the demos are not very intuitive, like how to elevate a point, but with a little of effort, you can do interesting things.
So I'm even impressed that it works. This is a Chromebook. Maybe we should connect my computer.
I got a question for Nebula. Just now you can do editing like in a kind of 2D data in some 3D like isometric view, but can you also edit in if you got some 3D objects, or are there any plans?
I believe Nebula supports 3D, but it may not cover all the 3D use cases that could happen in your case, because it was made to do map editing at Uber. So I think it's probably pseudo 3D that they were targeting. And as you can see from the website, there were very little designer involvement when this was developed. I think if we do adopt it as part of this GL, we could use some stepping back and look at how we want this interaction to work before we put in more effort.
It's halfway there. So the 3D editing, it's like half cooked. So you need to put a bit of tweaking into it to make it usable, and we managed to do it for a project. But the fact that yes, Nebula is it seems like unmaintained, at least from far away, and these examples are counterintuitive. You don't understand what's going on when you elevate a point there, but if you dig into the code and deal with some bugs there, you can manage to do it. So it would be very nice to have it in the open governance so we can improve it.
I was not even aware of some of these capabilities. I thought it was a simple editor, now like leaflet editor type of thing. I didn't know we had all these options. So yeah, I think it's a question to you guys. So these doesn't require, I mean, like the base map is independent of the base map, right? So you could actually use Google Maps here with no problem, right? So this is a purely separated from it. But what if we start supporting 3D modes on like MapLibre is working on, or Google Maps in the future, like terrains and so on? Then it will be more tricky, right? I mean, to make this work. Respect.
Well, it's designed to work with deck, so if deck has full support of terrain, theoretically, this should work with terrain. Let me ask you guys this: if we do either get this transferred from Uber or we fork it, I know it's probably hard for you to say you commit how much dev time to this, but would you want to be involved in developing a specification of how the user experience should work?
Yeah, I don't think we can afford like compromising now long-term fixed effort, but a proposal on how should it be made, that's definitely something we're willing to do, yes.
Sure, but you can say I want this thing to work exactly how, I don't know, Blender works, right? But that is a goal that we can move towards. I don't think right now there's a lot of cohesive design direction in this tool.
As a user, I think sticking to one base map is going to be a mistake, because essentially, if you want to edit, you should not be forcing people to use one specific base map, because maybe we are using a different one, unless base maps have like full coverage of features and parity in terms of features. The things that if you are using Mapbox and you want to move to somewhere else, and Nebula is forcing you to use that, you are going to be in trouble, I guess. So.
I think Nebula's one real dependency is deck.gl. If it doesn't work without Mapbox now, it shouldn't be hard to make that change. And if deck.gl can be synchronized with a different base map, this should work with a different base map too. I think there are some design decisions made during the development of this library based on whatever tech stack the original team was using. So there could be some some things that need to change, but it shouldn't be much.
Ibrahim, I think you wanted to say something, so if you can unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, 1 second.
Hello?
Yes, we hear you.
All right. First of all, thank you all. I really enjoyed yesterday and today. Great sessions. I want to just get back a little bit to the GeoTIFF format, and I think the loaders.gl GeoTIFF is not documented, but also it's I'd say not really complete. It's very experimental. But I think GeoTIFF in general is quite difficult because it's such a difficult format, I'd say. A cloud optimized GeoTIFFs might be, of course, in specific projections might be an easier target to hit, and I would say a much more reasonable one. So hopefully I'll try to maybe come up with a simple demo, because I was working on something like that, and maybe I can share that with the community. Yeah.
Yep, that'll be great. So I'll put it, like in there. Ibrahim is committed to that too. I think it's already 10:30. I know we want to move. Is there any other thing, any other area?
I would like to ask about performance. If someone of you has experienced some issues with performance using deck, or something that you feel that can be improved, or I don't know if.
It could be beneficial to have like deck working kind of in degraded mode if you are using an old computer or something like that. But to my understanding, there is no way of knowing whether you are working on a powerful client or not. And we can make our decisions, probably disable layers or something like that. And maybe it's really obvious and it's already done, but I don't know if or where has been done.
I mean, degraded performance, that's an interesting idea. The only thing I've done so far that kind of is like an instant quick win for getting performance is to decrease the resolution without changing the actual size. You can do that using the use device pixels prop. If you flip that to like 0.5 or 0.25, you might get a blurry image, but it'll be much faster, use a lot less resources and buffer. I noticed a big frame rate spike in it. Works across the board. I don't know if there's other ideas you have, but that's like a very quick one that
there's an tips and tricks section in docs. We can talk about discoverability later, but there's a part that talk about some flags you can turn on and off for especially when you're on mobile and have limited memory. Those things can help reduce crashes when you're on an older handheld device.
But I also just a second. I think like that was. I mean, yesterday Peter was saying like he found like performance, because I also did not know about the changes that you could do on the ratio and and things like that. I think that's something that probably we should highlight much more, because it gives much more power. I mean, if you that trade-off of like I don't want it to be so crispy, but like it goes twice as fast. That's a superpower, I think, as a control.
Yeah, I would say a really obvious one is just mobile. If you just try and load the website or even our event website on mobile, then the performance there is so much slower than on like a desktop machine. And I don't think it's just down to the the number of pixels. I think we maybe need to just set aside some time to improve the performance there.
Any other question? You have there in performance, you have also another thing that is using the binary data, performance optimization. That is something that, yeah,